Thank you very much. Yeah, I had prepared to speak about something, but I think that when here in the end there comes up so much else, so I just want to start with the last question about Brexit, because in reality I was also asked which are the challenges for Europe in this moment, and I believe really that the biggest challenge is to see, can we stick together? Is it possible to stick together? Will there be more Europe for some? Will there be less Europe for someone else? And we have a divide in the European Union in this moment, a very big divide. We have the Brexit, and we have also other countries. Some of the countries we are outside of the euro. We have different views on how to proceed. But the very, very big challenge in Europe in this moment is the extreme right. They're getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more or less everywhere. So if we do not stop this race of the extreme right, we will have very, very big problems in the future, I think. And then we will see a very split Europe. I come from Sweden. We live very far away. We have been receiving a lot of refugees for many, many years. I've been working with refugees for 30 years now. There came a lot of people from Iran, a lot of people from Latin America still, from the wars in El Salvador and so on. And I have seen so many changes on the way. But in Sweden, they were very, very fond of having refugees there, getting people there. And it was really no problem in the beginning. The problem started after a while when we had an economic crisis, and there came some more nationalist parties. They were very small in the beginning, and they had no influence at all. And all of the parties in Sweden, the political parties, we had some kind of, how do you call that, cordon sanitaire. We said, well, nobody is dealing with them. Nobody works together with them. And it's still the case. We do not work together with them. Now we have a minority government it's the Social Democrats and the Green Party, my party, in government. And this extreme right party is the balance between the former government, the conservative government, and us. So it's a very, very difficult situation. In our neighboring countries, we have also right-wing parties, and they are even in government. So we have seen a race of racist parties, and they come into government suddenly. And this is very, very dangerous, I believe. But the migration crisis, as we call it now, it didn't start with Lampedusa. It was long before that. I used to work a lot in Canary Islands, and every day there came boats with people, and they came to the islands. If the Spanish authorities couldn't do anything with them, if they couldn't send them back, they had 40 days, and then they sent them to the mainland, and then they had to deal with the situation just as they could in some way. And this is not the case any longer. We know all that it's after the economic crisis. It has been more difficult also to come as an economic migrant to Europe, and very many are sent back. I've been in the European Parliament now for 2 years, and before that I was in the Swedish Parliament. In the Swedish Parliament I work with migration, I work with foreign affairs, and I work with development. And when you work with all of those areas, you really see that you cannot divide politics in migration, development, foreign affairs. You have to move somewhere over here and link all this together, because it is linked together. And in the situation we are now, you spoke about the Turkey deal and the readmission and so on. When the migration crisis, if you call it like that, came to Europe, the response that we have done, that we have made for the migration crisis, is to close the borders even more. And this is in a situation where people are fleeing wars, But people are also fleeing poverty and climate change. A lot of reasons make people move. And then last year in autumn, when Angela Merkel, she decided to open up the borders and a lot of people came, here we also saw that the solidarity between member states, it's totally none. There is no solidarity. And that is also the very big split that I can see in Europe. When we really need to work together, then you choose to stand outside. A lot of countries just decided to stand outside. For many years, I followed the situation in Spain and in Sweden on the migration. And I remember before the Spaniards, they said they had more or less 200,000 migrants every year coming to Spain. Very many from Latin America. Most of them were economic migrants. Every year there were about 5, 6, 7,000 persons asking for asylum. Only. And then of course the Swedes, they said, well, everybody's coming to us. We have 40, 50,000 people asking for asylum. But look at Spain and look at the other ones. They do not go there. But the Swedes, the only statistic they made was those who were asking for asylum. And of course we had a lot of people coming to search for asylum in Sweden, and we have received them, and we had a system that worked. So they could come into it took very long time to make all the solicitations and so on, but it worked anyway. And then in the south, the country said, well, the north, they do not take anyone. They don't receive anyone. We have 200,000 here, you took 40,000, that's nothing. So there is not an understanding between the countries in the north and the countries in the south, what happens with the asylum. Of course, in Sweden it was only possible really to come if you were an asylum seeker. To come as an economic migrant was very difficult. And then there were some persons then who really, they were economic migrants and they tried to enter into the asylum system. And of course they got a denial. But what we did to solve this situation, because they also, when they got the denial, they hide it. They got hidden in Sweden and they could stay for 4 years and then they could ask again. And as they had been for a long time in Sweden, then it was more probable that they got the working permit or something like that. So what we did was to change the law so that you can come as an asylum seeker, but you can also come to search for a job. So you have a legal way to come as a labor migrant if you are not allowed, or if you are not entitled to asylum. So, and this made a shift in the Swedish asylum system, really, that people, those who came for work, they could go down way. They asked for work before they came, or they had someone, they were looking for work, they came to see an employer, or they come to see an employer, and if they get a job, they can stay. So this is a very good way, and this is something that we try to export to the rest of Europe. Because the economic migrants, we will always have them. Because the situation in the world is as it is. But in this moment, when there is so many people coming over the Mediterranean Sea from Syria, from Iraq, from the war-torn countries, the answer from the European Union is to close even more for those who come as economic migrants. And all of those readmission agreements, everything is, the decision from the Council, from the Commission, from the Parliament, more or less, that only those who come from war will have the possibility to stay in Europe. And all of the others, send them back as soon as possible. This is the answer. And at the same time, they also diminish the development aid, because now we have humanitarian crisis, we have so many refugee camps in Turkey and in Lebanon, in Jordan, and so on. So the money from the long-term development aid also goes to the refugee camps. And that means that the long-term work to reduce poverty, to combat climate change, to reduce oppression, to work for stable societies, good governance, and so on, it is diminishing. And at the same time, those who came as economic migrants to Europe, they worked, they sent money back to their home countries, to their families, and so on. They will not be able to do that any longer. And this has always been much more money going back from the migrants in Europe than what we give in development assistance. So it's a double punishment for those countries. And this is one of the challenges that we have in the European Union, that we have to make our asylum and or migration policy broader to also include those who come for economic reasons. And that's where we have to work on legal migration for labor migrants. Because the asylum system, we are obliged to receive those who come from war-torn countries or from political repression. Because of the Geneva Convention, we cannot just say that we do not like that, and we do not do that. Even though the Commission and the Council especially, they really wanted to bypass the Parliament and just to have to send people back to Turkey. In reality, the Parliament should have something to say on this, but they made it as a statement instead of a real deal with Turkey. It's just a statement, so the Parliament has nothing to say. We cannot work on it. We can only work on the visa liberalization, because then they have to come to us. And I'm the shadow for the Green Party on the visa liberalization file, and also on Turkey. So this is something that we are working on very much. But what we are doing, anyway, from the Parliament side, we are trying also, that's also legislation, and where we can make a difference, that we try to make also the possibility to have a humanitarian visa. And this is now in discussion with the Council and the Commission. And this was not the idea from the Commission when they said we have to change our visa regime. But the Parliament, we tried to get this into it. That's a legal way for asylum seekers. So we need legal ways for economic migrants, and we need legal ways also for the refugees. But if I go back to Sweden again, because Sweden, as I told you, we have always received a lot of people. But then in November or last year, and it started to get really cold, and we saw the government had counted on 80,000 asylum seekers, because we knew it would be much more than normal. So they counted 80,000, and they had budget for 80,000 asylum seekers. And that's not, because then we have also the labor migrants, but this is the money for we had money for 80,000 asylum seekers. That was what they thought would be the case. And then in the end of the year, we had a double. It was doubled, 162,000 asylum seekers, most of them from Syria, but also from Afghanistan, some from Eritrea, and some really from countries where you can't send people back. And people, they had to live on the streets, and that's not very fun when it's 5, 10, 15 degrees below zero. So there were the railway stations, the metro in Stockholm, everything was full of people. But it worked very well. The civil society, they were very organized. The police, security, other kinds of security, they were all, everybody was there and helping the migrants anyway. But the right-wingers, they were very also active, and they really, and people started to say, this is not normal, we cannot have a situation like this. What are the other countries doing? What are the other countries doing? Because we have the relocation system, we have the decision that to take people from Italy, from Greece, also from Turkey now, that all of the countries, they should be in this system in solidarity with each other. And then we see a lot of countries saying just no. We do not want anyone, or we only want Christians, or we only want from Ukraine, and then Portugal say, yes, we want, send them, we want to have a lot of people here because we are an aging population, we need them. And the refugees, many times, they didn't want to go there. And of course, the smugglers, we have also a situation where the smugglers, they sell the ticket the whole way, and included residence permit in Sweden, for example. So the person who bought that ticket on the boat, he bought something. He bought a ticket to go to a special place. And of course, they do not always want to go to another place. Now it has started to work, so people are going to Portugal, but it has taken a long time. So we are in a shift, something is happening. But really, what is worse for me as a Green, because we really believe in open borders. We would like a world where nobody have to flee or is obliged to flee, but where everybody can move as they would like to. Because if I want to come to Italy and work, why shouldn't it be possible? Eh? Or if somebody wants, but I do not want to be obliged to come to Italy and work. Eh? So for us it was very, very difficult, because the government, they closed the border. And the Greens had to accept it because we are a minority government, and the other ones, they are much stronger. And the Greens, in this deal we made with the Social Democrats, we knew that if we didn't do that deal with them, it would be even worse, because they would do the deal with the other ones, or the other ones would do the deal and close the border totally. So it's something that we are really, really ashamed of as Greens, that we had to accept this deal where we, instead of having the more or less the most progressive asylum system, or most open asylum system, now we have put ourselves on the lowest level of what the European Union asks for us. So we had to go down to what is normal in the other European countries, in many of the other European countries. So we are ashamed of that. But what I am most ashamed of is that we really closed the border between Sweden and Denmark. So when you cross the border sometimes if I go to the south, I take the plane to Copenhagen, and then I take the train to Sweden, to the south of Sweden, because the big airport is in Denmark. I have to show my passport. I come in Denmark, and then the train company, they take a photo of my passport. Because if I happen to come into Sweden in some way and they can always say, yes, we didn't let her go before we had looked at the passport. Because then I have to show the passport in Sweden for the police. I have to go step down from the train and go over to another one, and I have to pass a border control. And we haven't had any border control since 1958 in Sweden, between Denmark and Sweden, because we have the Nordic Passport Union. So this is I really feel ashamed of it. So the Greens, what we are doing now is to try to make this law as short as possible. And we have tried also to tell the Commission you shouldn't allow this, but they do allow it in a way. But we have to work on many other things. We have to work on more housing, or better housing. We have to work on better integration also. So, because if we want to counter the right-wingers or the extreme right, we really have to see that those who comes to us, they can also be integrated in a very swift way, and that has not always been the case. And we have, because we also have the question on the Syria, the war there, because if we want really to stop migration, we have to stop the war. Yeah? And at the same time, if people are not integrated in our societies, we create radical youngsters, and they go and fight in Syria or in other places. So we have to look at all of these all the time and not only every spot as such. There was a situation where the European Union was very united, and that was after the terrorist attack, the last terrorist attack in Paris. And France, they asked for military support against ISIS. There, everybody, all countries said, yes, we will help you. But when it came to the migration, they left in reality Italy, Greece, Germany and Sweden alone. That has been the case. So the solidarity between our countries, if we do not stand up for each other when we need each other, I believe there will be more and more split in Europe, and I'm afraid to see that happen. So I don't know where to finish really, but I think that Brexit is really a an alarm clock for us, and if we do not talk to our citizens about the problems that we have in our different countries, we will have more and more populists. They can be left or they can be right, and more, in this moment anyway, more and more right way or extreme right and racists. So that's maybe my last comment. Thank you.